This is Frontline Voices, conversations with our local heroes. Here's your host, Matthew Latham.
Chief Landers, thank you for joining Frontline Voices podcast. I appreciate you taking time today and coming in and speaking some hard truths. And I'm just really looking forward to this.
Well, thank you for having me. It was always a nice drive over to Ashley.
For those listening across Northeast Indiana who may not know you yet, tell us a little bit about your journey into the fire service and what first drew you into volunteering as a firefighter.
Well, it was family driven. I don't know that everybody has a choice, but I don't know that I had a choice. My parents adopted me in 92. My dad had already had a few years under his belt as a volunteer for Johnson Township. And I think one of the first buildings or first places that I was taken to was the fire station. I think everybody knows that as a father, you're pretty proud of that. So I would, if I can recall, I believe that was one of the first places. And then since then, it's been kind of a given that that's what I was going to do. I never chased anything else. I grew up in the firehouse. I didn't miss most Monday nights. I don't even know that if I had got in trouble in school, I think if my parents would ground me from going up to the firehouse, that would be more detrimental than grounding me to my room. But I kind of went into a evolution where I was there all the time. Learning the ins and outs, maybe doing and saying things I shouldn't at a young age. But the biggest part that got me into the fire service was that my parents gave me an opportunity, and I was never able to figure out how I could give somebody else an opportunity. So I decided to stick with it because I thought that would be my strong point. You know, once you're a contractor, you're always a contractor. Once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. Those mottos they carry weight, especially in the fire service. Once you're in the firehouse, you're always in the firehouse. And I've just been privileged to travel through the years of volunteer fire service, part-time employment, and then, of course, fell into this chief's position, this wonderful opportunity with wonderful people. And I utilize all of that information and all that data that's just stored up since 1992. And I say 92 because that's just the year that stuck with me. That's the year that my mom and dad took me away from a horrible opportunity that I could have went down. And we just didn't do that. We got stuck in the fire service. Public safety's been in my family, I would say, since 1986. Ironically, my biological side, there's a few medical, I believe some nurses, some state troopers. It's kind of ironic that even my other side had some similar identities. But I'm here because I chose to, and I chose to stick with it. And I would have never been where I'm at today if it wasn't for the people since 1992.
So essentially, you don't know a life without the fire service.
Yeah, I don't think, I think people take advantage of that with me too sometimes. Like, I don't know. I do not know anything outside of the fire service. And people will say that my personality doesn't jive right. Well, you're right. And it took me a few years back to realize that. A mouse in the wall is never seen until until you're shocked, right? Mm-hmm. So I was kind of the mouse in the wall. I had a place, but I wasn't one. They weren't interested in seeing me because it was home, and I think sometimes people tried to take advantage of that. If we can isolate him with friendship, maybe he'll fail at the fire service. And I would begin to think that they were right. But as far as the firehouse and the fire service and the people of the fire service, I think we all have the same mentality. I've had it for a long time, and I think, like you said, you have a few years. And earlier, I was, just shocked by it, and I think it's safe to say I do not know what else is out there, I guess, other than sports and hunting and fishing and just a little bit of, some people collect bourbon.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I collect kids' toys in my house. I pick them up. My wife's always picking them up. In the middle of all that, the pager goes off. I'm back to square one.
Right.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, you served time with Johnson Township, the Butler Fire Department, and now lead Orange Township. How did those experiences shape the firefighter and the leader that you are today?
So this goes back to 92, 93, 94, and into the late 90s. I had a fire chief that was more like a second father. Anytime I had a couple fire chiefs that were like second fathers. And when I say that, I don't discredit my father. My dad was he's an outstanding guy. But when dad couldn't get through my head, there was always somebody else to say something to me. And if I made a mistake, there was a big shot on a Monday night that I would hear it from another chief. And as the time went on, I started to realize that was acceptable. At a teenage era, I thought everybody was against me. But then I went to Orange Township, and I experienced it there. I didn't necessarily have that father-like material, but I did have some of the what I call grandfathers of the fire service, at least from my experience. Being 2 miles north of Orange Township for my entire life and working with the Orange Township folks as a mutual aid department, you get to see a different, diverse attack on things, how things are handled, how things are mitigated, I guess. And my attitude was put in check when I went to Butler. I thought I was going to pretend like I didn't know what I was doing, but it didn't last long because I thought I was confident and competent to do things my way.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a chief over there that gave me the opportunity, not only give me the opportunity for employment, but he gave me the opportunity to keep me held accountable. If I said something that didn't make sense or didn't add up, if I thought we were going to do something differently, because I know better, I grew up in a firehouse, that chief would set me straight. We got into an argument about fire apparatus, what model, brand, and he said to me, he says, why are you jumping to conclusion? Aren't all fire apparatuses aren't all producers pretty much the same? It's how you make your deal. It's how you word your contract. It's how you slowly build this process. And you can't judge your past experiences about today's endeavors. And so my accountability at Butler Fire was pretty extreme. So leaping into this chief's position, I would give that chief and Butler Fire credit for some of the things that I do today and some of the things that I inspire to the other firemen. The conversations, the interactions, sometimes not so comfortable conversations, I guess. But the leadership that I have isn't perfect. It's not the way. It's not a way. It's not a specific way. It's just a way that I've accumulated over the years. And it's ironic. Some people don't like that, but it's funny. They're the ones that gave it to me.
Right. Yes.
So I don't fault them for that. But the reality is the reality of it is I've learned it from them. There's no going back on that. I didn't just pull this out of the sky. Right. Show and tell at kindergarten is a kid brings in a toy car. So does the next kid. Right. They see it, they reproduce it, and they recreate it. And that's how we've become who we have, at least at Orange Township, is we take ideas from other organizations and we put it into play. And we may not take it from your organization, and someday we may.
Right.
And that's okay. But that's how leadership's developed, is we don't come up with all the ideas. And I can tell you that a combination from the excellent folks at Johnson Township, the excellent folks at Orange Township and Butler Fire have been instrumental to the decisions I make and the conversations I have with my administration.
It sounds like along your path, you've had some really good mentors to help shape that.
Yes, I've had some good ones and I've had some not so good ones. But there's with my oh man, I've pulled my hair out several times. Especially when I got a little bit older, away from teenage years, and I thought that I knew it all, right? Like, um, I would say some smart things. I had a, I believe he was an assistant chief at the time. He told me specifically, he said, "Your expectations are too high for this place." That was number one, embarrassing. And number two, shock. I didn't realize that my standard was was too high. And then I got to thinking, is that a me problem or a them problem? I never did figure it out in that time. I never did figure it out. And you jump forward 10, 11 years, and then I start to realize, okay, I was a mixture of that problem, but they were also a mixture of that same problem. And I had a lot of mentors, and I had a lot of mentors that were below me, ones that came after me. I learned more from the people after me than I did before me. That's a true statement.
Wow. Going back to it, you're a Wolcottville native with a deep roots in the region. How does growing up in this community influence the way you approach serving as its fire chief, or as a fire chief? Sorry.
Well, it's difficult. Um, I You always hear how everybody has the best interest for the community. That's why they're doing it.
Mhm.
And I think we get to talking later on about um, the byproduct of what we experience. I have been cut down. I have been spoken of many different ways in a town that I grew up in. My wife, she's noticed it. She's just appalled by it. She doesn't understand how how difficult it is to actually truly have a genuine concern, and you take ownership in the community that you're serving, but then others take ownership in cutting that down. It is difficult. It's one of those things that you scratch your head, and you try to figure out, is it worth continuing? Is it worth fighting? Is it worth arguing? And my answer is no, it's not worth that, but it is worth having better conversations. It's worth taking the time to sit down with the folks that disagree with you, get an understanding of what they're really saying, and then at least ask them to listen to what you have to say. And it's not about tit for tat in a community. It's about what's right and what's needed. And I think we always argue with ourselves amongst each other what's exactly right for a community. I think that's an opinion, but in reality, there should be some facts laid on the table. So, growing up in a small town community, watching everybody, again, like I said, the people that I watched are the ones that are upset because I'm returning the same values that they had. It's just from a different angle, and sometimes we have to let people be who they are. And when we're in a small town community, it's hard because everybody's aiming to be somebody they're not.
Mm-hmm. When we first connected and started spitballing ideas for this episode, there were some really key points that you wanted to bring up, which I think are very important. You had mentioned the concept of ownership in the fire service, less hesitation and more competence. What does ownership look like to you from a volunteer department or combination department?
Well, the word ownership is unique because yes, we own things. We own our car, we own our house, we own our watches, our wallets. We own all this neat stuff, whether it's fire apparatus, workout equipment, firehouses, um, but it's not ours. Um, and so we have to think about that when it comes to decisions, operations, finances. It is not ours. So we're going to manage it, but we're going to own it. We're going to take care of it. We're going to conserve it, provide better for it. So that way, when we go to sell it, or we go to trade off, or we go to transfer that management, it's ready to continue going. We cannot beat it into the ground We cannot wear ourselves out and then expect somebody else to take off with it and then turn around and tell them that they're a failure. The decision making, young firefighters. Well, I'm afraid that they'll think I'm this, or I don't want to do that because somebody will think I'm just cocky. Well, yeah, you're probably right. They will think you're that. And as were they, and as was the person before them. But you have to do it with your own integrity, your own purpose of ownership, and you cannot be embarrassed about it. Let me step up here. I get out of my command vehicle and I'm grabbing irons. I'm in my air pack. I'm geared up. I'm ready to go. I'm owning my position. I'm owning my purpose. I become a firefighter really quick. The chief stuff's back at the office.
Mm-hmm.
My eyes might be the leadership thing. My eyes might be the ownership. I'm watching my staff. I'm watching everyone else's staff. I don't want anybody to get hurt. So I own that. I'll put myself into a position where we get down and dirty, and that's okay. That's fine. But others can do the same thing. You get off the rig as a 2-3 year firefighter. There's no reason to be cautious. You've learned what you're supposed to learn. Grab the tools, grab the hooks, be ready to go to work and own it. Those people called you because they own that home, and they want you to come own the fire suppression, the search, and everything that needs to be done on a fire scene. And we cannot be afraid of what somebody else might think, whether they're slower than we are, whether they don't comprehend as fast as we do. We have to be purposeful with our actions, with our words, and ownership is temporary, and we cannot destroy it because we don't want somebody else to have it.
One thing that you mentioned in that was you're talking about getting out of your command vehicle, grabbing tools, and going to work. One thing that I personally really try to harp on is that aspect. Your guys want to see you with them. It's one thing to lead from the front and tell someone what to do, but in my own experiences, I find that guys are a lot more perceptive to you, welcoming to you when you're along with them. So I really like how you touched on that because it does make a difference, especially in today's mindset, I would say. So thank you for that.
If I could add to that, certain people look up to that. They like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had conversations with some people where some firemen in maybe bigger cities or a little bit larger departments, they don't want their chiefs on the job. They want their chief focusing on budgets. They want their chief figuring out how to keep the engine staffed. They want conversations with unions. They want all those other things. And I think with our particular situation, at least in the Northeast Indiana region, it is important that we're not having those conversations. We're not having union talks. We're not having
Right.
conversations about wages and whatever else and equipment's being staffed or apparatus rather. So that being said, we need to take some of that energy and put it into getting out of the command vehicle or getting off the rig and going to work. That's what it requires. And if a young, arrogant firefighter doesn't like that, at least they're going to witness it and they're going to get some kind of a taste of some kind of teamwork rather than, yep, his helmet's white. It looks white, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just protecting his head like it is everybody else's. And so that position on the fire grounds does not matter when it comes to the physical work.
In our discussions, you had mentioned hesitation. Where do you think hesitation comes from in today's fire service? Is it training gaps, culture confidence, or something else?
So hesitation is strictly based off of a lot of smacked wrist. You can only be smacked on the wrist so many times before you're just not interested in putting your hands out there. And we see people become, let me reword this, we allow people to be failures. We allow them to fail. There are some people that need to fail. We've got to let them fail just a little bit. They're going to get angry. I just had this a couple months ago. A guy stepped out of line, and he hesitated with doing the right thing. He did what he wanted to do, and actually he stepped on someone else's toes. He stepped over one of the officers in our staffing, and kind of pretty much insulted the guy. And we moved on. It wasn't anything that was detrimental to the agency, but he hesitated on doing the right thing. He hesitated on asking questions. He hesitated on thinking past his own personal thoughts. Hesitation can come from, will I miss the truck? Nah, I probably will, or I probably won't, or we've just got to, you're either willing and able. That's it. So if you're not able and you're willing, that doesn't work. And if it's the other way around, it doesn't work. You have to be both, willing and able. And you can't hesitate on that. You cannot show up to the firehouse not being able, but you're willing, because then that's half-ass work.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it comes down to some of my younger firefighters, newest firefighters, I don't even like to throw age out there. Newer firefighters, they'll sneak past my office and they'll be like, I've got a question. And I always tell them, just ask. Just ask. They'll beat around the bush because they're nervous. They're hesitant. We don't ever get anywhere when we sit here and be vague and try to be diplomatic all the time, right? Like we have to lay down the hesitation and lift up the motivation. That's what's got to happen. But we have to be open to that too, though.
Mm-hmm.
We can't knock all the Gophers down and think that the Gophers are going to come back up. The game's over eventually, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So just hesitation is because of our pre-existence. Growing up as children, we have always been smacked on the wrist, right? We know what's right and wrong.
Yes.
But we always try to push the limits. So there's that hesitation. We don't quite yet know if it's right or wrong, but if by God somebody tells me it's wrong, I'm going to be mad at them. We got to stop that. We've just got to be open and transparent and stop stuttering on success. That's really what it comes down to.
How do you build firefighters who don't just show up, but to take ownership of the job and the mission?
So we talked about this earlier.
Yes.
We
couple deep breaths.
Yeah. So you cannot build someone who's taking ownership, pride, and has the energy. You have to let them build you. I have learned over the course of my 30-some years around the firehouse that you learn more from the people under you or that have come after you than you do above you. I have found that people above you don't want you to know more in fear of you outdoing them.
Right.
And I found that if I sit back and watch the younger ones or the newer ones, they're coming up with their own ways, just like I did. And I don't have to build those folks up. Matter of fact, take off the leash and let them go build everybody else. The good and the bad ones they'll group themselves. And so you get the ones that are uplifting and energetic and they show that they love this job. They're going to attract the same kind of people, like-minded folks.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fair to say that they need some guidance. I have one right now who has been nothing but extraordinary, and he finds himself getting adventurous. But when there's a conversation to be had about stick through this, it's not what you think it is, calm down, he's starting to become that person to initiate those conversations with the newer ones. And he's new himself. He's building his own I would say network of success. He's realizing that you can't guard yourself hoping to I don't even know what it is that people do, that they protect themselves from others becoming better. I don't know what it is. I can't wrap my head around it even after the 30-some years around the firehouse, other than ego. But ego is just that's a whole nother alleyway I'm not really interested in going down. But
right.
What I will say is that you don't really have to build them. They build themselves. You might have to educate them. You might have to give them some motivation or guide them a little bit. Hey, that's not really the course we're going to be taking. But they build themselves and they help build me. That's how I look at the younger firemen or the newer firemen, if you will.
Taking that and taking it to the next step, because what you just mentioned kind of caveats into this next portion. What are some ways that leaders can empower younger firefighters to step up and develop a sense of responsibility early in their careers?
So we as leaders have to allow them to write out their decisions, and we have to allow them to make decisions. We have to allow them to understand the consequences without us telling them. Just this evening, we had a call. I didn't have to say a word. There's a bridge closure. This individual went the wrong way. I didn't have to say a word. I didn't have to even talk about it. But they beat themselves up. They knew they made a mistake. And you have to let them do that. You cannot criticize, ridicule. You cannot do it to another firefighter. You can't talk about another firefighter to vent. My wife gets an earful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when it comes to this type of stuff, you have to let them. Just let them. Guide them, but let them. Let them make their mistakes. Every volunteer is just all bent out of shape about getting blue lights, right? Right? They got it. I was the same way. Oh my goodness. If you ask my wife, I spent way too much money on that. And I wish I would have spent it on my kids rather than my blue lights. But I had to have several conversations with chiefs about my speculated driving. You know, we're always on the chopping block for how we drive, or we think that we're driving too fast. But I had to learn the hard way. I had to get stopped. I had to get a ticket. I'm not saying I ever got a ticket, but those things had to happen. And I wish my chiefs then would have just shut up and let me learn the hard way.
Right.
Instead of just throwing the hand grenade in the room and me trying to figure out what situation they're talking about. But we have to let them. We have to let them make minor mistakes in order to understand that the bigger ones could come.
And to bridge off that, sometimes it's easier to run without blue lights than it is anything else, because those things become distractions for people.
They can be, yes.
So we're going to turn the corner, talk about leadership and decision making. As the chief of your department, how do you balance being both a leader and a firefighter among your peers?
Well, I might be speaking out of phrase here, but I can be just like they are. And they are hungry. They want to do. They want to learn. They want to grow. And I know that I have to be the same way. I have to want that just as bad as they do. And there is a time to be a firefighter, and then there's a time to be a chief. And I look at it this way. When I say wrong phrase, I'm not their attorney, but I am the best interest of their liability. And so when that is required, that's when I step in. That comes from payroll that we experience, procedures, policies, new medical protocols in the county or whatever area. But to split them, I will put my pen down and my keyboard on my desk when a call comes in, and I'll be right there with them, and they'll be right there with me. I don't divide it. Mm-hmm. I never have. I never have in the 3.5 years or 3 years and 3 months. I've never actually split it, and maybe I should. Maybe I should let them go, and then just stay in the office or stay at home in the middle of the night. But I just don't understand. We're screaming about staffing. Why would I sit at home?
Right.
You know, I can't. I don't want to. I don't even know why. I don't even know why it's a thing. I mean, that's a whole nother question I have. But as far as your question of how do I balance those,
mm-hmm.
I let them balance me. I let them tell me where I'm needed. You hear this because I said so, or I'm the fire chief. Yeah, there comes a point where that's all absolutely. It's just horse crap. It doesn't matter. It has no purpose in the job. We're all humans. The humans called us. The leadership has the administration side of it has nothing to do with the job. And so I think we balance each other out, at least at Orange Township. And I'm telling you, I noticed that if you're not part of the balance, you tip off the scale, and we're not chasing you back. That's just not what we do. We might give opportunities, right? We'll give an opportunity. Somebody's been down a wrong road, but we know what's on the menu. And I don't know if you've ever been to a small town restaurant. They don't change menus a lot.
No.
So
No.
the balance is for me is strictly by them, by my fellow firefighters, my crew members, and my officers.
I want to ask you, because this has been a topic that comes up in every podcast. Recruitment and retention is a constant issue. What do you think is the answer for keeping individuals motivated long term and committed long term?
So in the volunteer fire service alone, is this where I talk about the byproduct?
Yeah.
So you have athletes that are athletes in high school, and then after that they're done, and a select few of them across the nation become all-stars. And that's the way the volunteer fire service is. You're going to have quitters. You're going to have people coming and going, but they're not going to do anything if you don't open the door. You're going to have people who don't like you. You're going to have people that don't like it. They don't like how things are. You're going to have people that love how things are going, and they could care less about anything else other than just keep going. But we can't sit around and ponder on why people are leaving all the time, because they're not. Just the other day, I wrote down names of every single fireman that I've seen come and go since as far back as I could remember. And I do not recall the amount, but I know the board was full and I could have kept going. And we were around the 150 mark. Since I don't know. We'll go with 1995. That's about as more frequent than a little bit more frequent for me to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But 150 people have come and gone. I mean, it's when it comes to recruitment and retention, I can tell you that if the only thing a fire department has to offer is a T-shirt and nothing more, then they cannot sit down and ask, why are we losing people? You have to give them more than just the T-shirt or more than just the identity. You have to give them the ability. And if they're not willing to take the opportunity to learn a new ability, they're not meant to have. If they are so narrow-minded like I was when I was 18, 19 years old, they will fail. And you just got to let them go. You got to let them, right? You have to let them go. And if they come back and they've got a new view on their shoulders, then that's fine. As far as recruitment, we have to do a better job in the community having conversations with people we've never had conversations before with. I can tell you that I walked into a gas station just a few months ago, and I'm going to talk about her. I'm just going to say it. Stephanie worked at Lassus gas station in Wolcottville. And I knew she had just moved to the area and into our responsible area. And I watched her customer service. It was always top notch. She was always having conversations. Grumpy people would come into the gas station and she would turn them to a smile. And I just kept thinking to myself, this lady, I know of this woman. I know who this person is. And I used to be judgmental years ago. I was like, these people on community service or people coming in doing washing windows because they committed a crime. What if we took a minute and stopped and had a conversation with them and see where their life's headed?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying Stephanie did community service, but that's a day for her to tell her story. But it wasn't the most favorable. So I walked into her at the gas station and I just straight up asked her. I said, hey, what do you think about being on the fire department? And she's like, I don't know about that.
Right.
And I said, well, I just, and that's as far as it went for probably about a week. I stopped in and I talked to her again. Just mentioned it to her. And I didn't want to harass her. But I just asked. And she's like, and she asked, what would we be doing? And I straight up told her, I said, it's going to be the hardest 6 months of your life. And she said, I don't know about that. I've seen worse. Right. So she's been places.
Yeah.
And she's grown up through hard times. And to be honest with you, and I'm not discrediting any other firefighter, but she's the fastest, most progressive person I've seen off the streets in a long time. She pulled up, pulled in, and she's pulling out, going on calls and taking care of things. And all because we had a conversation with somebody we normally don't have a conversation with. You know, you get your buddies around, and I've always said this. It's actually my signature in my email. A circle of friends don't always make great leadership, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have to go out and we have to get these people that are different and diverse. So when it comes to recruiting, we have to find the people that are passionate. And again, the byproduct of all of our excitement, the adrenaline, the motivation, the energy is simply helping people. And there's a lot of people in your community that have that. We just haven't found it yet.
Right.
And if that's going to be the only thing that saves us in the volunteer fire service, then we need to start doing a better job at it because there's no turning back.
Look outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You talk a lot about let them make their mistakes, let them learn their own way. What leadership lessons have you learned the hard way over the years?
Yes. So I think earlier we talked about the entitled and enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of folks think I'm entitled. They think I portray myself as entitled. And unfortunately, I wish that was the case because I've been enlightened to a lot of things that I've really never really wanted to be enlightened to. I'm not perfect. But the when you I guess let me ask you this. When you say ask me the question again.
What leadership lessons have you learned the hard way?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back to about 2015. I'll never forget this. I just brought this up in our recruit and retention class. We were getting ready for a training. We were going to go do a live fire. We're going to burn this trailer down. That's back then when I think we did things without permission and we just violating everything that there was to violate. But we were all getting in the truck and there wasn't really any training announcements. It was flying by the seat of our pants. And this firefighter was coming up and they're like, well, what are we doing? And I said, and I said it just like this. I said, we're all getting in our fire gear and we're going to go do training. I don't know what you're doing. That person was so mad at me. I completely degraded them. The real problem was they weren't aware. And I was being a smartass. I knew what was going on. I knew what we were doing. But I found out not everybody's going to be like me. That's what I've learned over the course of the years here, even in the last 3 years. A lot of good people have stepped away because I've had expectations higher than what they're actually able to give. The reality is they weren't honest with me. They didn't tell me that they have some shortfallings at home. They've got financial issues. They have, I guess, and maybe they don't have to tell me that, but I would think in a clear, transparent motive is that we're a volunteer fire service. We already have high demands. Please lay your demands on the table so that we don't violate those. And that's been one of my downsides is I think everybody's like me. And then you get another individual that's like me and I think, oh, there should be more. There's not. They're rare. And I'm not saying that we're top notch. I'm just saying that we're rare. And I can tell you that some of the sacrifices that our families put up on the table is always a concern of mine. And sometimes I think that we get a little selfish and we forget that there are people back at the home front that we need to take care of. And as far as what I've learned, it would be that not everybody's like me. They didn't grow up in this. And so they're not easy to catch on. It takes them a little bit longer. But my personal opinion is it shouldn't take forever, right? So give people grace. Give them a little bit more grace than what you were given. That's what I've learned, at least in my leadership, and to have purposeful conversations, which is scary today because anybody asks you how you're doing, and it's become pretty much a blanket question. And Corley Moore has it in his class. Says if you want to lose friends or have people disrespect you, ask how they're doing and walk away when you do it.
Right.
So, but yeah, not everybody's the same, and we have to give people more grace.
one of the things that I think that I'm very much like-minded with you on, and I've brought it here a lot, is I often preach that the reality that we live in is somebody else's perception. So just because you think the way you say something is taken into account the same way that you would take it,
Right.
That's not the case.
Sure.
So I like how you talk about that, because it is something that is becoming more and more prevalent, that yes, we have to be conscious that just because our personality can handle something a certain way, not everybody's going to take that. And
Sure.
in their story, it's going to be how they take it.
Exactly.
So like I said, I really like that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you have experienced next. In April of 2025, you were involved in a rescue where you entered a burning home and saved a toddler. Walk us through what happened that day.
So I'm laughing because of the whole story. It was actually an absolute mess. I'm going to get down to the root of the problem here, though, once we're done talking.
Mhm.
I didn't actually save a toddler. I assisted a mother of locating her toddler. And it was perceived in the newspaper that that's what I did. It's not what I did. I was headed to the bank to make a deposit. Growing up as a kid, and we're going to go all the way back to like 2004, 2005. We're cleaning the pig barn or pig pens out. And I look across the field because that's how I am. I'm always observant. Everybody always criticizes me for that. Always observant. But I look across the field and I see a barn. It looks like the barn's on fire. This is it's a mile down the road. My dad's like, rah, rah, rah. He comes out. He's like, well, I'll be damned. That barn's on fire. So they called that on the old VHF radios. This was before we had 800s. And it was a true barn fire. I noticed that from a mile away while I was scooping up, pig poop. And so same story. I'm driving north, going into Wolcottville to the bank. And there's this car that was just taking its time, turning left into the grocery store. So I still look at this video often. I'm not talking highly of the individual that's just sitting in the middle of the road, not turning, and has got plenty of time to turn. But it happened for a reason. I looked off to the left as that individual was driving around. I was kind of giving an eye contact with the individual that was driving. They just didn't know I was looking at them. And I saw a small header with a little bit of turbulence. It just seemed odd. So I'm looking at it, and as I'm getting closer north, it's starting to become parallel with me. I'm taking a look here, and it's just not jiving with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I catch the next street. I didn't turn on the street that it was that the original house was on. Caught the next street, and then went west. And as I come back around and I saw it, I pulled onto the road and pulled into the front yard, and the back of this house is just ripping. And the passenger door to the pickup truck was wide open. And to me, that's odd. No, I don't leave my doors open at my home.
Right.
And I'm not saying anything about the occupant of the home. Just it was a big red flag for me. And
things aren't adding up the way you would.
Yeah, it's just not right. This isn't right. And so within those few seconds, and I'm not going to go into too much details, but the mother made a presentation. She appeared, and she went into the house. And I was just like, what is going on? And she come back out of the house, and she closed the door. And it was just her. I'm getting out of the vehicle. I called the first alarm. I gave the wrong address. And then I'll get into the point of this here. I gave the wrong address. I dropped the first alarm. And I'm dealing with Mom. Mom is an absolute panic mess, which rightfully so. But she was worried about her house. And I've never in my 17 years have ever had to ask, is everyone out? Like, I guess what I want to say, I've never actually had to ask multiple times, is everyone out of the house? And she didn't say anything. She just kept saying, my house is on fire. You need to put the house out. You need to call the fire department. And she was in a frantic mess. She didn't realize I was the fire department, right?
Right.
I've never been on this side of 911. And so she takes off and she goes running back into the house. What are we doing? So needless to say, I broke every NFPA regulation there was, and mom and I and the toddler were able to um, safely evacuate the house. And out of respect of mom and the family and the situation that was going on, I don't wish to continue talking further about it, because it was a very unfortunate thing that we had to isolate, and kind of out of respect of mom, we had to. I guess what I would say is not everything is out for public information,
Mhm.
but what I will say is mom did a fantastic job once she got her bearings together. Um, and again, when you read the newspaper, not everything is the way it is. And after that fire, it was actually ironic because there's a chief uh, in Noble County that had done a similar thing, but actually made the grab, the real grab. And there were some firemen that were commenting about what happened to the 2 in, 2 out. What happened to that? And it's so discouraging and so narrow minded that we're going to sit around and wait for a second person to make a decision on someone else's life. It's not fair. It's
Mhm.
not fair to them. It's not fair to that second person. I mean, can you imagine being the second person? I had to put my dog away before I could respond.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
oh, it's my dog's fault. Like, we have to make decisions as single-handed people. And that's what that came down to. And I can tell you that the setup and the training and everything about that, and I think you're going to get into that next question, but
Mhm.
it was a quick day. It ruined I wouldn't say ruined, it just ended my entire afternoon. And fortunately, everybody was healthy, safe. Nobody got hurt, and we were able to suppress the fire. There's a new home there now today.
With that, now I'm questioning because the newspaper sometimes gets it wrong, but you were quoted in saying training matters to be able to adapt. What does that experience say about the importance of training for firefighters?
So that was on the Grabs podcast, the training and adapting.
Mhm.
So just because we've never experienced it doesn't mean we can't prepare for it. And I think that's what a lot of fire departments get themselves into. And I'm not going to say specific fire departments or a less number or greater number, but what I will say is firemen themselves haven't seen it, so they don't forecast it to happen to them. And we cannot continue to sit around and wait for it to happen to us before we act. I've always said this, and I think there's fire departments all across the nation that are waiting for some kind of horrible situation to occur before they finally step up and say, well, we have validation to do what we need to do now. We should start banking off everyone else's mistakes. Every single agency out there, every single firefighter that we've lost, we should start banking on. We should start capitalizing on their unfortunate events, whether it was administration issues, staffing issues, equipment issues. It's not a perfect world, but we got to start working towards a better one. And the adapting was simply the mom telling me that her baby was in the house. And I went from I've been a big NFPA follower. I've always liked to try to use that as regulations to be better and be a little bit more concrete foundation. But there's a clause in there with definite, uh, confident information that you're going to go take care of that. And I had to adapt real quick. Um, that was my second search by myself. And it's not fun, but I've got to teach myself how to do it. And I want my guys, my staff, men and women of Orange Township, they know that that is the probability, that there's a chance that the dice roll on double sixes, and they've got to do it. That's what we were called to do.
Mhm.
We're not superheroes. We're just that we've got to adapt. We can't we can't be. I've always referred it to. We never want to eat carrots growing up or as a child. We actually never even tried eating the carrots to begin with.
Right.
So we got to put down the hesitation that we talked about earlier,
Yes.
and we got to realize that it's okay to just maybe make a mistake and get better at it for the next time.
So when you're experiencing events similar to that, high stakes, everything's chaotic. When things finally slow down and you have time to reflect, what kind of things go through your mind?
So that day, that specific day, I told you that I gave the wrong address on the radio. Man, was I mad at dispatch for that. Like it was their fault, right? Like,
yeah.
So I gave them an address, and when you talk about looking back and what were some of the thoughts, I know why I gave them the wrong address. I put it's crazy, and I'll openly admit it. I put the occupants ahead of the accuracy. I was so focused on and never been dealt with the tenants or the occupants of the structure that I screwed the address all to crap. We had them headed to Milford, Indiana, and I go back on the radio traffic and I listened to it, and I was clear as day. You could hear the address, you could hear exactly what I was doing and what I wanted. But for some reason, that address didn't exist. And when these dispatchers are dealing with other things, they plug in what you tell them. My engine's going the wrong way. My engine got an active 911. The pager went off. They started heading the other way, and that was my mistake. It didn't default the call. It didn't take the call and make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
I had another engine responding at this, simultaneously, but I needed both engines on the scene. I had another engine coming from the neighboring community just a half mile north, and there's a couple things that I've noticed, and our response times, at least at Orange Township, I cannot express the difference in where we're at today than where we were in 2022, 2023. 2023, we were still dealing with 8, 9, 10 minute, 11-minute response time, but 2022, 2021, we were in the 17 to 20 minutes. That's not acceptable. When you're going to enter in your FireCAD reports, or you're doing your NIFRS or nearest reports, there's a threshold in there that says 20 minutes is too long. And I think 20 minutes is a courtesy thing, because that's definitely way too long.
Right, yes.
And I think 10 minutes is too long. But I can tell you that looking at the times, just our most recent fire that we had, all of the preparation, all the conversations that I've had with my officers, my government body, the community, and my boss has led to a better response time, faster fire suppression, water on the fire, faster search time, and ultimately better for everybody. And so on that day, this was back in 2025. Yeah. We were just at that threshold where we had our part-time staffing, and we had good response times, good searches, good training. It just didn't feel real. It's like, what can we do now to get better? What can we do? What's the next thing we can do to get better? What can Chief Landers do not to give the wrong address, where I'm looking at the occupant's accountability rather than the accuracy of the address? That could have cost a lot. Mm-hmm. And so now I take a breath. Now I look at the address, and I take an extra second and make sure that it's appropriate. The other size up, I guess the other evaluation is having the command vehicle with SCBA, water can, fire extinguisher, hand tools. If it wasn't set up that way, if my government body wouldn't have allowed to have quicker response, someone there sooner, I don't know that our outcomes would be any better. And if we didn't have the paid staffing, I don't know that our outcomes would have been any better. I think they would have been more delayed, a little bit more difficult for a solution. So all of the things that we've done up until that moment, you wonder, is this pointless? People are complaining, or could they complain? But we can't worry about what they think. I mean, we do have to understand that that their opinions matter. But that day, that moment, April 14th, mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. All of that just made sense, and so has all the other ones after that. It's a good feeling that your organization is struggling, but also keep moving forward, and not worry about how things used to be in the past, but get better from them.
One of the things that is unanimous across Northeast Indiana is we're very rural. So I want to ask you, Orange Township serves a rural area with a mix of homes, farmland, and lakes. What are some of the challenges unique to rural firefighting that people might not realize?
So rural firefighting is time is of the essence. When we're so spread out across our, I guess the topography, um, time is of the essence.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that because they validate with, well, the struggles is going to be volunteering. We're already rural, which means farmland, which means we're traveling other places to entertain. Uh, we don't have capital USA in the middle of our community, so we can't run down to the water park and still be inside the community. So being rural does reflect on a lot of things in the fire service. But the main thing is that we need a lot more support than what people imagine. A lot of agencies, they get by and they make it look like they're doing well, and they are. They're doing fine. They're managing, but they could always use a little bit more of a boost. We just had a lady come in for our broken tools session, the date night with Amanda and Corley Moore. They this lady rather came in and she did balloons and table coverings and I'm just that was awesome. And in a for a rural setting, that's great because we are short. We had 6 calls that day. When did we have time to put table covers and balloons and stuff up for a marriage class? We didn't. And so we're already struggling on, I want to say struggling, but we're already managing a busy schedule. And being rural, those rural departments, they need more support. And it doesn't have to be on the fire side. It doesn't have to be on the medical side. Just simply coming in and being part of, I guess they call it what, an associate member, an auxiliary member.
Mm-hmm.
That's the critical part. That is the most significant part for our agency is because there are things that we can't knock out and get done. And to have people like that come in and support us, that is the mystery of the rural fire service. There are water supply issues. There are travel time issues. That stuff can be mitigated with progressive thinking and keep moving. But as we do that, we're leaving other things behind, and that is important. Those things are important. And so the challenges of a rural organization is that it doesn't always have to be about firefighting, and it doesn't always have to be about medical. There's a lot of moving parts on the backside of that than just that.
Speaking of rural firefighting, brush fires and grass fires are a big concern in our areas. You recently helped acquire a new grass rig. How do those tools change the department's ability to respond?
So growing up, I think we had one grass buggy, and then we had another truck that I think if I would say sorry, I got to check make sure we didn't have a call.
You're good.
Going crazy. We had one grass rig growing up. We had another apparatus, 53. It was an old Ford Howe pumper. You could stand on the front bumper, and it wasn't the lightest grass truck. But I noticed that we always had more than one vehicle for the applications. And when I came to Orange Township, and a lot of departments do, they only have one. I don't know, how many grass rigs does Ashley have?
We have 2.
You have 2. Okay, so invalid.
One switches between utility truck
Sure,
and grass
sure.
rig, but yes, yep.
Yeah. And so we had one, and it's a 2000, and I might get this wrong, 2003, I believe, or 2000. Yeah, I think it's a 2003. I actually, it doesn't matter, but it's an early 2000s model, and it's starting to. It's not yet nickel and diming us, but I know where it's headed.
Right.
And those nickels and dimes end up being bills upon bills upon bills, and so with the budget cuts that are tentatively coming and possibly going to interrupt funding for fire departments across the state, we jumped on the opportunity to take advantage of the state bid process and get a truck and start thinking about the future. And it wasn't easy, but it was a lot easier doing it now than being pushed to a point where we got to do something later. And so conversation was had, and our government body decided that it was appropriate to get this in motion. And so we jumped on it, and will last us for. Matter of fact, I really don't know how long it's going to last us because you talk to the older generation and they don't make anything like they used to. But
Right.
that's a valid statement. I mean, I think I get a new TV every six years, or no, I'm sorry. Washer and dryer doesn't even last you a year or two. It's just going through the punches here. But um, I would guess that a new apparatus will get us a little bit farther. It's a much cleaner skid unit. It's a little bit more. Well, we've come a long way since the early 2000s, right?
Right. Yes.
So,
yep.
but I will tell you that old grass rig of ours, top notch grass rig. It's a tank. Love it. But there will be a day that we will no longer need it because it's going to start taken out of our pockets like crazy. So we put the future ahead, and that's what we've been doing is putting everything ahead, thinking of tomorrow, and not waiting for it to smack us in the face. Have we thought of everything? No. I'm sure there's something that somebody will say that we need to look into, and they do all the time. But as budgetaries, we have priorities, and the firemen and how they do their job and how they're compensated for their job is the biggest priority. And that involves turnout gear, equipment, apparatus, compensation. So the grass rig was on the list, and we just expedited it quickly before budget cuts were to come in. And it was paid 100% truthful. We didn't have to borrow any money on it. We didn't have to ask for this or fundraise for that. We just took care of it. It's our responsibility. And fortunately, we have good staff, good officers, and a great government body to ask good questions. I'll tell you a funny story. I'm against 1-ton pickup trucks. I've never been a fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't know. Actually, because that's just how I am. I didn't know why. I really don't know. I just always been a 3/4-ton guy. So I just had a conversation with my board members this morning about it. I just told him, I said, I still don't like 1-ton pickup trucks. And he's like, yeah, well, how's it working for you? I said, it's working great, but
I can't beat this thought.
Right. So I had to make I want to say I wasn't forced to make a decision, but I was given feedback to go against my thoughts, and I'm okay with that. I was absolutely fine with that. And I think that's what it comes down to is if you're not willing to change your mind, you're not willing to change the world. That's how I see it in the fire service. All the way down to a simple grass rig or an airboat or a ladder truck or an engine or whatever it comes down to. PPE, fire helmets. All my guys have TL2 leather helmets. I'm not bragging. But have you ever put a TL2 leather helmet on?
I've never even touched a leather helmet of it.
Well, if you ever get a chance to put a TL2 leather helmet on, it's one of the lightest fire helmets in the industry. And I can tell you with my neck issues and those plastic Ben Franklins and the 1010s and how odd shape they are and how they make your head feel top heavy, put a TL2 on. Yep, they're expensive, but I think the long-term results are a lot better for your neck and spine. It's always been my go-to, and putting them forward, putting them ahead of expenses. A $300 helmet can cause $12,000 worth of damage on your neck.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yes.
And so that's kind of the motto we go by is we try to plan for tomorrow, and we try to put everybody else up front. And so far it's worked.
Mitigate the issues that you can ahead of time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sometimes taking care of the small issues now will help you take care of the bigger issues later.
Prior to starting the actual podcast, we had talked about how the importance of growing relationships with other departments. With mutual aid being essential in rural areas, how important are those particular relationships with neighboring departments?
Well, I think you and I touched base on this before we started.
Yes.
And I think I got into it a little bit more in depth than what I'm going to get into it here. When you ask how important it is, it's vital. It's highly vital. And if you have a department that's 11, 12 miles from you, yeah, it's important. But can you imagine having a department that's a mile or two away from you? How detrimental it is. And everybody gets in limbos of their identity being stolen because they work together and somebody might try to take over somebody's territory. And I think we're past that. And I think we'll get into the conversation here in a little bit about exit ramps. But it is so important that that next gallon of water, that next ounce of energy from the next firefighter may have to come from your next department. There's no reason to banter back and forth. You know what's crazy is there was a tailboard leadership post about maybe we could put egos to the side and start, working together. People share that post, but then they're not living it.
Right. Yes.
This is a billboard for stupidity, is what I think it is. And genuinely, we have to stop. We have to stop the nonsense. We have to get together. If an agency wants to get together and train and work and integrate some kind of common ground, I don't know why anybody would resist it. I have no idea. I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, where would I want to not do that? And the only thing I could think of is, well, the trucks might be red. But I can't think of anything else. I don't understand. There is no reason. It is so important. It's no different than being on a ventilator. Sometimes that's what you need, unfortunately. And you have no control over that. But what would be nice is if you could control it today so that tomorrow it comes natural. It's just a natural thing. And organizations get fearful for other organizations getting involved with them. Because of that possibility of looking weak, looking smaller. That's not what it's about. I'm sure there are people out there, organizations that are just damn willing to do that, but that's not appropriate for today's world. It has no place. It's absolutely zero tolerance, and I mean that. The departments that are 12, 15 miles apart, 9, 10, 15 miles apart, they are important. They are on my box alarms. And I've just asked some of our departments around us, we're down to the basics. My staff is really getting the hang of this. Now let's spread our wings and let's start learning other techniques. They're already learning other techniques. That's the cool thing about them is most of them are all instructors now, instructor one. And so now they're all teaching their own little quirks with our standards.
Mm-hmm.
And but it would be nice for us to go somewhere and learn how they do it, so that when we do come, because we're quick, there are days that we're quicker than what we should be. We need to know how to benefit that agency that we're coming in second due or third due to help, and I would love for at least my organization to receive that same care, not for me, not for the department, but for the people that called for us to begin with.
Speaking about mutual aid, let's talk about the barn fire of 2024. It's reported that you had 27 departments there, and personally, we got called there, and it was one of those, is this for real? So, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
I will talk about that. So, and this is that mutual aid mentality. I had a fire chief from a villa who was tentatively living in the area just for the time being until his home was remodeled. And he made the scene. He gave a size up. And somebody asked me, well, what did you think about that? And I said, what is there to think about it? What is there to think about? He showed up. He explained what he found. He said what he saw. Reliable information. We started the first alarm. Well, we started the first alarm 30 seconds into the incident. But that day, we were only there for 6 hours. We started at about 4 o'clock, I think. Yeah. And we were done right there around 10:30, somewhere around there. And then Orange Township and Johnson stayed there over the night hours and just kind of monitoring. And there wasn't really anything we were going to do about it. But there was over 1 million gallons put on that. And there are some wins and some loses. But what I learned from that incident is I know that all of those this is the cool thing about the fire service, is you can rag on each other all you want, but as soon as that pager goes off, it's like a bunch of softball girls. They love each other on the field, but they hate each other in the locker room, right?
Yeah.
And so we got to stop that locker room BS. We have to start learning what everybody else is about. And that day, there was only one critique that ever came back to me, and it was because water supply was on the wrong channel. And I thought, I'll be.
If that's the worst that happens, I'll take it.
I had help and support from all across Northeast Indiana. And the other thing that really hit me was, well, why didn't we just let it burn? Well, we kind of did. We took the fuel load, the fire load was pretty extensive when it first started. And so, yeah, house and silo, fields, there was a lot of things at stake here, a lot of exposures. And it did drag on. But I remember the 10:30 hour, I had someone come up to me and said, listen, this goes against me. I am not a fan of letting things burn. Mm-hmm. Let's just wrap this up, get everybody home, and there's nothing more we can do. And I remember the 5, 6, 7 o'clock hour. I don't remember exactly what hour, but I know maybe it was about midterm, probably about 8 o'clock. I walked up, there was 100 firemen standing and staging. Throughout the whole fire, there was nobody standing and staging. But when staging was entertained with food and drinks, everybody came in, and I asked everyone, and this is what got me, and this is what I love about mutual aid. I just yelled out loud, anybody that wants to go home, raise your hands. Nobody raised their hands. And I'm thinking, I'm sorry, folks, but there is nothing for you folks to do.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to ask one more time, anybody that wants to go home, raise your hands. And department way northwest of us, raised their hand, the whole crew. And I said, all right, go ahead and go home. We had a lot of cleanup to do. But like I said, mutual aid is important. That barn fire was fantastic. We have the next one like that. We have a lot of work to do. I don't know that a lot of agencies are prepared for that. And that is why mutual aid is important, because someday we're going to need a little extra toe strap to pull us out of the mud. And Noble County, LaGrange County, Steuben County, DeKalb County, I believe Kosciuszko County, Whitley County, and Elkhart County pulled through. I had trucks I've never seen before. I was happy I saw another black fire truck. I mean, that was cool. Right. So they do exist. I'm not the only department with them, but just like I said, fire service is like a girls' softball team. They love each other on the playing field. That pager goes off, all that BS goes to the side. But man, as soon as they get back to the locker room, they start gabbing and blabbing and jabbing, and we got to stop that. Like, if you want to criticize somebody, let's do it professionally, and let's definitely do it with some grace. Mm-hmm. Okay, because I'm guessing if that situation was thrown on your lap, you wouldn't be very keen on some of the criticism. And at the end of the day, that fire itself was not very stressful for me. The people that kept bugging me was the most stressful part. I had people that really shouldn't have even been there, but somehow they made their way there. They had all kinds of different things to talk about, but they became an obstacle, and that was the most challenging thing. But luckily, operations chief, he was from another department. Water supply chief was from another department. EMA director, I don't deal with that every day. I don't deal with that man every day. He came in, he gave me the information I needed. He was very supportive in the role that he had, and he didn't step on anybody's toes. Mutual aid was fantastic that day. We had police officers driving signal tents, lights and sirens with pizza. That just blew my mind. I didn't think that was a thing, but we had support coming from all over the place. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the largest fires I think that I've ever experienced outside of a commercial factory fire. But it was successful. Everybody was safe. I think we had one damaged drop tank out of the whole entire thing. And I'm pretty proud to say that that was a fantastic group. And if you guys were there, thank you.
Going into this next section, you've already kind of talked about the culture, being able to come together when things are chaotic. So I want to ask you, when it comes to the next generation of firefighters, what do you think they need to understand about the responsibility of wearing the badge?
Well, first question I have is, do they even understand what the badge is? I I had an old fire chief. He's gone now. One day actually my first fire department, I never put a Class A uniform on. I just thought of that. Never actually had to put a Class A uniform on. Never knew. I guess it wasn't a thing. I don't know. But I know that badge, just like the logo or the chest logo that some might wear, you have one on.
Yep.
I don't today. But there's one thing that it says. Fire rescue. That's what we do. And where we do it at. And that's what it means. It doesn't mean scandal. It doesn't mean manipulate. It doesn't mean coerce anybody into believing anything else. It strictly says fire rescue or fire department and where it's being done at. And that's what it means. And that's what comes first. That's the responsibility of that badge. And if whether you're sworn in or you're not sworn in, I think that's unique in itself. But nothing changes. It's the badge says where you belong, where you're to do it at, and what it is that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. If a brand new firefighter joined your department tomorrow, what advice would you give them on their first day?
Do not be afraid to ask questions. Do not come in here thinking that you don't have a place and you're going to figure it out over time. Because like I said earlier, it takes a little bit, but it doesn't take forever. And if you don't ask questions, you're never going to get there. You cannot be afraid to look at something and be like, I don't understand. If you don't understand, you have to ask. And I think we all know the quote, seek to understand before being understood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's a great quote for young firefighters. Take a minute to understand what's going on, and then talk about what you have and what you're confused about. So that way they understand that you're confused. That way there's no false thoughts of, yep, he's got it or she's got it, or we just all move along and then there's old Billy out there in the field just left behind. Ask questions. Ask them often.
One thing that I've noticed with your department in particular, you guys are very deep rooted into your community. You do a lot to show the community what you're about. You're transparent. You do have your firefighter spotlights where you're introducing the members of your department and stuff like that. And I think that's incredibly important. With departments that are deeply rooted into these towns, how important is to build that relationship between the fire department and the public?
Well, I think in my answer to your question, I think I talked about kind of like investment, right? Eventually, we all know how NIPSCO bills are right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, we can complain about how expensive it is, but the matter of it is, if we don't pay it, they're cutting us off. So if we don't get involved with the community, they're going to cut us off. They don't get involved with us, we're not even going to know what to do with it. It's simple as that. They are the financial provider. They are the ones that see what we don't. And if we disconnect from that, I'm telling you, we're going to get blindsided and think it's a big surprise. We have to stay involved. And it's a product. It is a product. What we do is, I'm not going to say that what we do is something that is worth marketing. I think it's worth marketing in the fire service itself. I think the reliability and accountability is worth marketing into the community. Here's who we are. Here's what we're doing. And this is what we're going to do for you. And then also, hey, by the way, this is what we could use from you. This is what we could utilize from you. And again, I talked about having conversations with people that we wouldn't normally have conversations with. We've got to do a better job with that. We've got to stop and talk to Betty that's out walking her dog.
Right.
We have to.
What are some ways that departments can build a trust and a connection with their communities aside from emergency calls?
I don't know that it helped, but when we did the boat, I'm going to just talk about the boat here, and I'm going to do it real brisk. The airboat was purchased on strictly the mentality of benefiting and bettering the people of our community. And it was hard to do because we didn't want to just strictly focus on ice rescue and water rescue, but we wanted to focus on fire suppression. And so I literally had to go around the lake communities and have conversations with these homeowners. Can we talk about putting a dry hydrant in? And as anybody would say. I don't want you tearing up my land and putting
Right.
in piping, and then someday the fire department's just going to pull up in here and start using it and bothering me. I got family over here. So I had that repetitively, and rightfully so. And I'm not disturbed by any of their suggestions, but the connection we had with the community built the boat. The boat was built by the people that denied the usability of their property to have dry hydrants established across the lake or different points. We have a lot of water in our community, and so we built the boats just based off of of the feedback from the community. It was vital, and it was great because although so I can tell you, less people complained about the boat after we got the boat than the people that interacted and said they didn't want a dry hydrant on their property. So it really guided us in the right direction of where we needed to head. And I can tell you, the family uh, that lost their loved ones in 2009, I reached out to them when we built the boat. They lost their loved ones on Sylvan Lake, and it was a sad story, and it was unfortunate situation, absolutely unfortunate. And looking forward, we had to do something that would somewhat significantly increase the less. There's no reason for it to happen. Not one bit. And so we helped. I'm sorry, we allowed them in. I want to say allowed. We involved them.
Mhm.
We opened our doors with phone conversations and getting them involved on the name of the boat. I'm just going to go into it. The name of the boat is RC Dorothy, and I had new firemen on the department that were like, "This is stupid. This is stupid." Well, it may be stupid to you, but it was named RC Dorothy, and RC stands for Room City. And I don't know that I have the right to release their names, but they also match the initials of the folks that we lost on the lake, the R and the C. And Dorothy came with the wind of the propeller, the fan on the back of the boat, and the phrase of "There's no place like home." And when you're out in the middle of a lake in the middle of the night and you're at your weakest end, I bet there is no place like home. And so getting the community involved and then having them come in and see the boat and be part of it. And I know that they were, and I didn't mean to bring them back into the time of sorrow, but it was important to have their feedback and to have other people's feedback to build a project and become a successful piece of equipment. A lot of potential, so much potential with that apparatus, pumping capabilities, the ice rescue capabilities, the water rescue, the different land maneuverabilities. It's important to get them involved in some of your decision making as far as some of your operations.
Up next, these are a little more emotional drawn questions, but very, very important. What concerns you most about the future of combination and volunteer firefighting?
Is this the exit ramp question, or is that the next one?
That's the next one. The next one.
So, what concerns me about the combination volunteer is that
Yes, the future of combination and volunteer departments.
what concerns me is that we're going to eventually burn out, and it's going to cost the taxpayers way more money than what it could have. It's going to be a sudden shock to everybody. You have, I word it like this: you have 5 firefighters missing 30 calls, but you have 2 that are responding to 50. Those 2 are going to be whipped eventually. They love it now. It's great. It's in their blood. They're strung up on this, and they're maybe making $10 a point, $5 a point, maybe $500 a year, maybe. But what's the tangible return outside of helping their community? These people are giving everything they've got, and we have not told the people in the community that, hey, by the way, they're really not making anything for the hard work. The demand is getting higher. The training, the standards, everything's moving forward, but their compensation. Where we were, and unfortunately, I can't go back into the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but I can tell you about the 90s, is that every truck in the firehouse was gone and there was someone in every single seat. So I'm guessing that work 20 men on one project, job will be done in a heartbeat. Now we're getting 4 or 5 men out the door to work on a 20-man project, and we're only compensating them the same we were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if not a little bit more. And that's my concern: is are we going to let free stand in our way of results? It's sad. I think it's coming, and I know that I felt that same way. Is we can't we can keep doing this. We can keep going. Free is great. A lot of fire departments are volunteers are paid. Some of them do. I think most of them get compensated. So, in the aspect of the taxpayer, yes, they are receiving some kind of compensation. But at the end of it, are they really receiving any compensation at all? I don't know. I don't think it's fair. My concern is that we're going to continue allowing free to stand in the way of our results.
With that, do you think the fire service is at a crossroads right now? And if so, what needs to change to sustain it?
So as I said in my answer to your question earlier, we passed that exit ramp 30 years ago. I know when I first started, there was probably a handful of us. And then those people moved on. They get mad at somebody and they think that it's better somewhere else. And then the unfortunate part is the people suffer for that. But there was conversations 15, 20 years ago about this. And we're getting into the conversation of territories and fire districts and county fire departments. And I absolutely think that is the answer. And unless somebody can start having conversations with people we don't normally have with, those conversations may have a tangible return for volunteer organizations to stay in business. But the other side of it is volunteer organizations can stay in business by converting over to part-time or a combination department. I'm sorry, if it's $15,000, it's $15,000. If it's $5,000, let's start working some way, somehow, to either protect your identity of your organization, or more importantly, protect the people that are paying for it. We've crossed that path many, many times and many years ago. And now everybody's exhausted and almost out of fuel, and now they're backpedaling and wanting to know, what can we do now? What can we do to save this? We should have had these. I guess we should have made decisions years ago. And if we're going to make the decision, I think now is the time to make the decision. If there's a department you want to combine with or organize with, then do it, because eventually it's going to happen. I don't, again, unless we do something significant to retain and recruit people and focus on, it's okay that people are people and they're going to make mistakes, and stop exiling them, and then people need to realize that they're not perfect. That's the other problem, is you get somebody that's just perfect and they're just too good for the organization. They take off and they go somewhere else. You can't lie to yourself. But I think there's a little bit of hope left on this volunteer crossroads. But I do truly think that it's time for organizations to start taking account for the reality. I do not understand why a 20-minute response is acceptable. I don't understand why a 10-minute response is acceptable. Are there agencies that's the best they got? Yes, it is. And I understand that happens, but I don't know that it's acceptable. And if it involves people at the firehouse to get rid of that, then that's what we do. That's what has to be done, is you have to incorporate staffing. And whether it's at the smallest minimal ratio for starters, and then you start working your way up, again, it shouldn't take it's going to take a little bit. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's not going to take forever. That's what I stand for. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hope I didn't hurt your skull.
No, not at all. No. In a world where people are busier than ever, why would someone still choose to volunteer as a firefighter?
Because they want to. That's it. That's the only reason somebody would decide to do it, is because they want to. Whether it's the siren, the Q siren, the lights, a hole in their heart that needs to be filled. It's because they want to. And I would say that anybody out there, I don't know what kind of span of spectators you have, but it is safe to say that if you end up watching this video or this podcast and you're not in public safety, but you love doing good for people, then this is a place for you. There's a lot of people out there that want to do something for somebody without recognition. And we need to gather some more of those type of people and get the job done and go home and do it again the next day. But you have to want to do this. That's the only way possible. The moment you say you don't want to do this, then go. Don't do it no more.
Mm-hmm.
But just because you're miserable doesn't mean everybody else has to be miserable.
I'm going to add this in here because I think it's incredibly important. What's one thing that you wish the public knew about the fire service that they don't?
We're not superheroes. We have, listen, we're like vehicles. We're out of line. We need repair. We need maintenance. Sometimes we need replaced. It is what it is. We cannot expect an old dog to keep living forever. It's going to have to get a new dog, or you're going to have to get a new vehicle. You're going to get a new toothbrush. Your toothbrush doesn't last forever. It gets worn down, and so do the firemen. And if we as firemen don't recognize that, we're going to wear everything down fast.
Mm-hmm.
But as a community, we have to understand that they're not perfect. The firefighters, the administration, they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes, but you have to be willing to go have a conversation with them. You can't go down to the diner and bicker about it, because that doesn't solve anything. Walk into the firehouse, corner the fire chief, and say, I got a question. But do it with respect. I would rather have a community member come into my office and say, I got a question. Why are there orange stripes on your truck? Fire department down the road's got red. Why do you have orange? I would rather them just come in and ask.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would also ask that they listen. Just take a minute to hear what has to be said. Because that's what we're willing to do. I think that if you're willing to do that, then I think it's a two-way street. And if we can start by that, then I think the conversations when it comes to funding, when it comes to purchases that are not generally seen in a firehouse happen, that it's more understandable. I'm sitting right in front of workout equipment. I think that's awesome. We've got workout equipment along the north wall of our firehouse. You guys have it upstairs in your, we call this a day room?
Yeah.
Yeah. At least you have it. And be real with me, though. Did a lot of volunteer fire departments have workout equipment in the past?
Not really.
Not really. It was not a thing, and it's starting to become a thing. And so when the community comes in and they ask, what is this for? That is a great time to explain it to them. Make sure the right person's explaining it to them.
Right, yes.
But they have to be told. They have to be told. Whether they disagree or agree with it, at least they're informed.
Mm-hmm. As we start to dial into the final parts of this podcast, we're going to do some self-reflection. When your time in the fire service is eventually over and someone else is sitting in your chair, what do you hope that people say about the impact you had on the department and your community?
So, I talk about ownership. And I was just on the phone today with my deputy chief having a conversation about not this in particular, but I am coming to the point where my days are numbered in the fire service. And I'm actually looking forward to it because, and this isn't anything against my awesome parents. And I lived the fire service life for a long time. And I missed out on a lot of things with mom and dad, and they missed out a lot of things with me. We just lived a different lifestyle than everybody else. And I'm doing the same thing to my kids. So with that being said, I don't know about a legacy. I don't know about what will people think of me. I already know what people think of me. I get reminded every day. But what I would love to see happen is for someone to stop someone that is in the wrong and tell them that they're wrong. because everybody knows that I have an opinion. And I think that's our right, is to speak, but we also have the responsibility to listen. So if long term down the road I'm gone and someone stops and remembers, because I'm going to tell you real quick, uh, the chief that hired me at Butler, I learned that it's okay to say something that somebody else doesn't want to hear if it makes a difference. Um, we have to, well, just because we own it doesn't mean we get to keep it. And so I guess if it was a legacy, I really don't understand what that means. But what I would say is that somebody takes a minute and remembers the time that I said, stop, it's not right, and corrects it and moves forward in a better direction instead of being a yes man.
I like that.
You can ask my parents. Their hair, their gray hair is because I didn't listen.
Right.
Okay, right. So
You didn't stop.
I did not stop. Yeah.
If you could leave firefighters across the region with one message about service, leadership, and ownership, what would it be?
So that is the one question that tricked me up. Because what I want to say is not appropriate for the podcast. So I did type this up. So here's what I typed up today, and this is what I would tell every new firefighter. That's the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't train for today. Train for who you're becoming. Have a goal, and work towards that goal. Because remember, the byproduct of all that is helping people. Growth takes time, but it doesn't take forever. And then ask your own questions, walk your own path, and don't judge someone you haven't stood beside. That's my biggest tip. Do not judge someone that you have not stood beside. You may have saw them from a distance. You may hear the stories, or you may hear the rumors or the drama that you think you hear. But do not judge them until you stand beside them and work with them. And we'll get a lot farther in the fire service if we do more of that. Stop being an asshole and start working.
Absolutely. Final question. If you could recommend anyone for this podcast, who would it be and why?
So I was on the phone with him when I pulled in here. I've had a lot of fire chiefs, even the ones that I don't get along with today. I've learned a lot from them. And when I say get along, we're not cat fighting. We're not kangaroo punching, right? We just don't have the same visions. And that is 100% okay. There's been a lot of people, a lot of great fire chiefs, a lot of great leaders, a lot of poor leaders, great friendships, poor leadership. Like I said, that circle of friends don't always make the best decisions. But Chief Schultz out of Butler Fire, he's one of the most piss and vinegar guys I know, and I've learned a lot from that man. And not only to have him on here, but if we could live a little bit like Schultz and get worked up when it's appropriate, listen when it's time, and speak when it matters, I think all of us would benefit from hearing from him. Now, the flip side is I don't think he's going to do it, but he's that humble. Unless he wants you to know what he has to say. But I learned so much from that guy, and a lot of things that we've implemented at Orange Township. I wouldn't say all of them, but just the equipment, the layout, the purpose, the response has came from conversations with him. And Ronnie now, who's chief of Butler, outstanding man, has seen the world in and out in the fire service. It's just, unfortunately, Jeff was my frontline guy when I walked into when I walked into Butler, there was no walking out. I was there for the next 8 hours. There was no, well, I'm going to go home and go to bed. No, I was going to be there for the next 8 hours. There was a requirement of me, and I was running, but I finally ran into accountability, and that's Jeff Schultz. There's others, few that are past. They're gone. There's no way to talk to them, obviously, but uh, damn, it'd be great now to go back and say, all those times that you and I were just pissing back and forth, thank you. I appreciate it because you were an asshole and so was I. And it's made me who I am today. And that's the other thing, the exposure to, if you're so narrow-minded to be around a specific group of people, don't get mad when you get surprised by another group. Go out and experience other people. Go have conversations with people that don't agree with you. When I became a chief, I put a guy in an officer's position I couldn't stand because I needed to have that different view. Someone to argue with me about the sky being blue.
Mm-hmm.
Give me that perception that you see that I don't. And that's a lot of things in the volunteer fire service we try to hide behind is someone else's opinion. Opinions and well, we all know what they say about opinions, right? But the problem is we got to stop talking through where our opinions come from. We've got to have more purposeful conversations. And I can tell you that Jeff Schultz, he's an assistant chief now. He has taught me how to have purposeful conversations with good intent, inside the firehouse and outside the firehouse. And I can't think of anybody else. I've got plenty of firemen that you could interview, but as far as why I am who I am, it would be Jeff Schultz from Butler Fire. I don't know if you're aware of him.
I've had a few run-ins.
I'm sorry.
Well, Chief, as we come to a close here, I want to thank you. Your passion and your perspective. It's refreshing. It's something that you gave a new approach on ideas, and I really do appreciate that. The other thing that I want to thank you for is I think you're the first person that voluntarily agreed to do this. Everyone else I have to kind of pull teeth with, and you were game, and I really appreciate that, and the clarity and the transparency that you had in this. So I definitely thank you.
Well, I want to say this, and I think Ashley Fire has covered us a couple times. And when you guys had your experiences last 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
The smallest thing that the smallest thing that we could do was to offer our staffing, and that's what it's about. I think you guys came. I don't know where we were or what we were doing, but I called Chief and I said I could use a few guys on a Saturday. Could you guys do it? And they sent a crew over. The barn fire, you guys sent a crew over, and you're so far away. And that's what we don't take into consideration is the departments that are so far away. They're just as important as the ones close by. If I bring a department close by into our station to cover, then we're losing that coverage close by. But if we take and pick out one flower and bring it over to this garden, it's a lot more beneficial. And the things that you guys have been doing and the things that I guess the mission that I've seen you guys driving forward with is inspirational. And I'm hoping that what you guys are doing and what we're doing and what the next individual and the next agency is doing is going to create a great cancer, a benign tumor that just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just doesn't have any bad news attached to it. So what you folks are doing, your weather reports in the morning are fantastic, and I can tell you that when I'm up in the morning letting my dog Luke out, and I get the live notification that we're on, I watch it. It gets me through dog time, right? So keep up the good work, and I just was razzing you about coming up here and taking over your podcast while you guys were at the viewing. It was just a joke, but we enjoyed the couch. We enjoyed the dinner with what's his name? What's the old man's name?
Oh, that was Junior. He's
Dob.
Dobby. But yeah, he one of our old chiefs.
The great people over here at is it
Danny's?
Is over here is Danny's?
Yep.
Awesome folks. Just treated us well, and and gave the other staff members an insight of what it's like to be appreciated by other agencies and by other communities, and that was awesome. So I look forward to doing it again in a more enjoyable manner. It's obviously the tough ones that, and that's the biggest thing that I've noticed in my entire time as a firefighter or being attached to the fire family is, why do we have to wait for this type of stuff to happen to get together? It blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely blows my mind, and that's not appropriate. It's so weird to have such a, and this exists, you have such a stigma, and I'm not speaking in words for Ashley or Orange Township or anybody, but there is this general understanding that there's departments that don't get along. But man, when someone's laying down and we're paying respects to them, we all just get in the same room together. Well, why can't we get in the same room together before all that happens?
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
It's mind blowing. So, but keep doing what you're doing, man. I think Ashley Hudson, or wherever you're headed, keep doing what you're doing, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
This is Frontline Voices, conversations with our local heroes.